Have you ever had a moment where everything on the outside seemed fine, but inside, something was quietly breaking? You smiled at the world, played your part perfectly, but at night, when the noise faded, there was that weight again. A tightness in your chest, an ache in your stomach, a sadness without a name. You've tried meditation, books, advice, distractions. You've told yourself it'll pass, but it hasn't, has it? The pain lingers like a ghost that knows your name. What if I told you that this pain isn't your enemy? That it's not here to punish you, but to guide you? Carl Jung once said, "What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate." And that may be exactly what's happening in your life. You're not broken. You're disconnected from yourself. This isn't another feel-good video. I'm not here to fix you with 5 quick hacks or tell you to just stay positive. I'm here to challenge you, to take you to the edge of your inner world and ask you to look down, and then dive. Because what's down there, what you've hidden, silenced, or forgotten, might just be the key to your freedom. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who spent his life pleasing everyone, always saying yes, always smiling, always fine. One day, without warning, his body started collapsing on him. Panic attacks, insomnia, random tears in the middle of grocery stores. He thought he was losing his mind. But in truth, he was finally hearing it. That man was me. And maybe, just maybe, you're not far from that edge yourself. But there's power in this place if you dare to look. So stay with me, because in this video, we'll walk through the pain, not to escape it, but to understand it. We'll face the shadow Jung spoke of. And when we come out the other side, you won't be the same. If any of this already stirs something in you, if you see yourself in these words, drop a comment below with, "I've felt this too." You're not alone. And today might just be the day you start coming home. To yourself. You think you suffer because of the world, because of your job, your family, your lack of money, your partner who doesn't understand you. And yes, all of that can be heavy, can feel unbearable at times. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll notice something deeper, something quieter, something that doesn't go away even when things seem to be going well. There's a deeper ache, a sense that something inside you is misaligned, like a quiet hum of sadness or anxiety that never completely disappears. It shows up in the silence, in your body, in your dreams, in those moments when you're finally alone. That's not the world hurting you. That's the pain of disconnection from yourself. Carl Jung said the greatest tragedy is to live a life that isn't yours. And that's exactly what so many of us are doing. Without even knowing it, we become who we think we should be. We follow the rules. We say the right things. We hide what's real to protect what's expected. And the cost, you lose yourself. At first, it's small. You swallow your opinions in meetings. You laugh at jokes that don't feel right. You say, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. You do it to be liked, to fit in, to survive. But over time, that tiny betrayal becomes a habit. You forget who you were before the pretending began. And here's the part no one tells you. That pain you feel, the tightness, the sadness, the confusion. It's not weakness. It's not failure. It's your soul trying to speak. It's an alarm system. Your body and emotions are screaming, something's wrong. Not with the world, with how you've abandoned your truth. It's not failing that hurts. It's the expectation you put on yourself to never fail. It's not loneliness that breaks you. It's not recognizing the person you've become when you're alone. It's not them hurting you. It's you every time you abandon yourself for approval. You keep looking for solutions outside new routines, new people, new goals. But the real wound isn't external. It's in the space between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And this pain, as awful as it feels, is not here to destroy you. It's here to wake you up. Jung believed that suffering is the beginning of transformation, not the end. Pain isn't the problem. It's the path. But to walk that path, you must be willing to listen, to pause, to stop running and ask, what have I been ignoring inside me? It might feel like standing naked in front of a mirror for the first time in years, but that mirror doesn't lie. It reflects your truth, and truth is the first step to freedom. So before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Just sit with it for a moment. What part of you have you silenced just to be accepted? Think about it, and if something comes up, write it down. Say it out loud. Name it. Because the moment you name your pain, it starts to lose its power. That's how healing begins, not with solutions, but with honesty. You've been wearing a mask for so long, you've forgotten you ever had a face underneath. You were taught early on how to be liked, how to be the good one, the strong one, the funny one, the smart one. You learned which parts of you were rewarded and which ones made people uncomfortable. So you began to edit yourself. Smile more. Speak less. Be agreeable. Don't get angry. Don't be too sad. Don't be too loud. Don't need too much. And at some point, that mask, once just a performance, became who you thought you really were. But deep down, a quiet truth remained. A version of you that never stopped existing. One that remembers who you were before the pretending, before the rules, before the world told you how to be. This mask, it's not just emotional, it's physical. It's in how you walk into rooms, how you sit in silence, how you hold your breath when you want to scream, how you say yes when every cell in your body is screaming no. And maybe you've done it so well for so long that you've convinced even yourself. But here's the problem. The soul cannot be lied to. It knows. And it begins to protest, not with words, but with symptoms. Anxiety, fatigue, restlessness, insomnia, emotional numbness. That's not dysfunction. That's resistance. That's your truth fighting to surface. You think you're tired because you didn't sleep well, but maybe you're tired of being someone you're not. You think you're anxious because life is stressful, but maybe you're anxious because you've spent years silencing the voice that says, "This isn't who I am." You think you're breaking down, but maybe you're breaking open. Carl Jung wrote that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. In other words, the emotional chaos we feel ice into the real pain. It's the result of avoiding the real pain, the pain of being inauthentic. Let that sink in. You are not suffering because something is wrong with you. You are suffering because you're not listening to what is right for you. The truth is, the mask was never meant to be worn this long. It was a temporary protection that became a permanent prison. And what lies beneath it, your anger, your fear, your desire, your sadness, isn't shameful. It's human. It's sacred. And more than anything, it's yours. So now, I want to ask you, what mask have you been wearing that you're ready to take off? What truth about yourself have you buried beneath the need to be liked or approved? Say it. Whisper it. Write it. Let it surface. Because if you want to reconnect with yourself, the first step is to stop hiding from who you are. You've spent years trying to silence the pain. You've called it weakness, treated it like an enemy, tried to drown it in work and entertainment, in relationships that felt good for a moment, but left you emptier than before. You've said things like, "I'm just tired," or "It's just a phase," or "I don't know what's wrong with me." But what if I told you, there's nothing wrong with you? What if the pain you feel isn't something to be fixed, but something to be understood? Carl Jung didn't see pain as a flaw in the system. He saw it as the system's way of trying to get your attention. Pain is not here to punish you. It's here to point you somewhere. Think of your emotions, your anxiety, your sadness, your rage, your numbness, not as malfunctions, but as messages. Signals from a deeper part of you that you've been ignoring. And the longer you ignore them, the louder they scream. It's like a smoke alarm. You don't unplug it just because the sound is annoying. You look for the fire, but most people do the opposite. They numb, distract, medicate, pretend, post a smiling photo while silently falling apart. Because they've been taught pain is bad. Pain means you're broken. No, pain means there's something important you're not facing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt an emotion that made no sense on paper? You had a good job, people liked you, life looked okay, but you still felt empty? That's your soul saying, this isn't it. Or maybe every time you're around a certain person, your stomach clenches. Or you feel exhausted around certain situations, even if they should be fine. That's not random. That's your intuition speaking through discomfort. Pain is the soul's language. It speaks when your mind refuses to. It says things like, this path is not yours. You're betraying your boundaries. You're trying to please everyone but yourself. You've abandoned your truth. And you won't hear it if you keep judging it. So today, I invite you to shift from why am I feeling this way to what is this feeling trying to show me? That question alone can change your life. It turns pain from a curse into a compass. It gives your suffering meaning, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because every transformation begins with discomfort. Every breakthrough begins with breaking down. And the sooner you stop resisting the pain and start listening to it, the faster you move from reaction to revelation. So let me ask you one more thing. What feeling have you been pushing away lately? Don't answer it in your head. Answer it in your heart. And if you feel called, write it in the comments. Let it be seen. Let it be known. Because the moment you stop hiding your pain is the moment it starts to heal. There's a part of you that you've spent your whole life avoiding. You don't talk about it. You don't post about it. You barely admit it to yourself. But it's there. And it's been shaping your choices, your reactions, your relationships from the shadows. Carl Jung called it the shadow. And whether you believe in it or not, it's already at work in your life. The shadow is everything you've rejected in yourself. Your jealousy, your rage, your selfishness, your lust, your ambition, your fear. The parts of you that didn't feel acceptable in childhood, that made others uncomfortable, that got you punished, shamed, or abandoned. So you locked them away. You buried them under politeness, under people-pleasing, under self-control. You told yourself you were nice, kind, humble. But the anger didn't disappear. The desire didn't vanish. The fear didn't die. They just went underground. And from there, they began to control you. Not openly, quietly. Have you ever sabotaged something good without knowing why? Exploded in anger that felt disproportionate? Felt envy you were ashamed to admit? Chosen someone who hurt you because they felt familiar? That's the shadow in action. It doesn't whisper. It manipulates. It hides behind your justifications. It shows up as patterns you can't seem to break. It keeps you stuck until you turn and face it. And here's the truth. The shadow is not evil. It's not your enemy. It's you. It's the part of you that was never given a voice. The part that's been waiting patiently, painfully to be acknowledged. Because what you repress, you don't get rid of. You empower it. And what you deny controls you. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that. How much of your life is being run by parts of you that you've never faced? How many decisions have been driven by unhealed wounds? Old roles? Childhood scripts? And how many times have you blamed the outside world when the real war was internal? This is why transformation doesn't begin with positivity. It begins with honesty. With saying, yes, I carry this too. Not to shame yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Because buried beneath that shadow is power, creativity, truth, wholeness, not perfection, but realness. So I'll ask you now, what part of yourself have you been most afraid to face? What have you labeled as bad when it was actually just wounded? Don't rush to answer. Just sit with it. Because this is the beginning of liberation, not fixing, but integrating. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, drop a comment below with just one word: shadow. It's not weakness to face it. It's courage. And the courage to look is what changes everything. Knowing your shadow is just the beginning. Now comes the part most people avoid: the confrontation. It's one thing to understand that you've hidden parts of yourself. It's another to face them. This is where transformation demands something rare. Courage. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind that whispers, keep going, even when every part of you wants to run. Because facing your shadow means telling the truth. Not to others, but to yourself. It means sitting with discomfort. It means asking questions you've avoided for years. Why do I always attract the same type of pain? Why do I get angry at people who remind me of myself? Why do I say yes when I want to scream no? It means taking off the mask and looking in the mirror. Really looking. And what you'll see there won't just be pretty. It'll be honest, raw, maybe even a little terrifying, but it will be real. And real is where healing happens. Here's how it starts. Notice the signals. Your body is speaking before your mind does. That tightening in your chest, that knot in your stomach, that unexplained exhaustion after a conversation, these are not coincidences. They are signs. Your body remembers every truth your mind has tried to forget. So listen. Next, write. Not for likes or praise, but for liberation. Every day, take 10 minutes and write like no one will ever read it. Pour the parts of you've hidden into ink. The envy, the shame, the longing, the thoughts you've never dared to say out loud. Because when truth escapes the prison of silence, it starts to set you free. Then, reflect. Notice your emotional triggers. Who do you judge harshly? Who do you resent? Who makes you feel small? Often, the shadow we haven't owned in ourselves is the one we attack in others. And finally, seek support. This is not a solo journey. Whether it's therapy, mentorship, or deep conversations with someone you trust, have a mirror. Someone who can hold your truth when it's too heavy to hold alone. Carl Jung said, "The unconscious is not a garbage bin. It's a living intelligence. It's not trying to destroy you. It's trying to guide you. But it needs you to listen without filters, without excuses, and most of all, without fear. Because the monster you've been running from is just a part of you, waiting to be loved." If you feel ready to take that first small step, just drop a comment with, "I'm listening." It doesn't mean you're fearless. It means you've decided to stop running. And that is where real healing begins. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable, when something shifts. Not a big breakthrough, not fireworks, just ... Space. A small release inside. A breath you didn't realize you were holding. Finally exhaled. That's what it feels like when you stop resisting and start integrating. Integration is the opposite of rejection. It's not about defeating your shadow. It's about sitting beside it and saying, "You belong too." It's the moment you realize that your anger, your sadness, your fear, your guilt, they're not flaws. They're parts of your humanity that have been screaming to be heard. Jung called this process individuation, not becoming someone else, but becoming who you truly are, undistorted, unmasked, and whole. This isn't about perfection. It's not about being healed once and for all. It's about finally living in truth with all your pieces intact. When you begin to integrate, suffering loses its grip. Not because pain disappears, but because pain is no longer misunderstood. You stop seeing it as punishment and start recognizing it as a signal, a guide, a gift. Let's be clear. Integration doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, a path, a daily decision to stop abandoning yourself. It shows up in small moments when you pause before saying yes to something you don't want. When you allow yourself to cry without shame. When you catch yourself judging someone and instead ask, what part of me am I rejecting right now? This is where the miracle begins. Because the moment you start treating yourself as a whole being, instead of a problem to fix, your entire life begins to reorganize. Relationships change. Energy shifts. Your inner voice gets louder, no longer distorted by fear or guilt. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to earn your worth through suffering. You begin to realize that peace doesn't come from fixing everything around you. It comes from accepting what's already within you. You stop chasing. You start listening. And in that listening, you find something unexpected: compassion. Not just for others, for yourself. You start to see that the parts you hated the most were only trying to protect you. The patterns you repeated were just old wounds trying to find closure. Even your worst moments, your breakdowns, your lowest points, they were initiations, not into despair, but into depth. The other side of pain is not just freedom, it's authenticity. It's the ability to show up in the world and say, this is who I am. Not perfect, but real. And that is enough. So let me ask you something. What part of yourself have you recently started to accept? What piece of your story are you ready to embrace, not erase? If you feel it, write it down. Say it out loud. Because healing is remembering, and remembering is reclaiming. And when you reclaim your truth, you no longer need permission to exist as you are. If this touched something in you, drop a comment with "I'm whole." Not because you're done, but because you've started. Healing doesn't stay inside. When you begin to integrate your pain, reclaim your truth, and embrace your shadow, something subtle but profound happens. Your outer world starts to shift. Not because it suddenly gets easier, but because you do. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop apologizing for existing. You begin standing up for your space. You stop chasing validation. You start offering presence. This is what it looks like when inner healing becomes outer power. And it's not loud. It's not aggressive. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. Like a mountain that doesn't move, no matter how strong the wind blows. You begin to notice things differently. The people who once drained you, you see through them. The roles you used to play to stay safe, they feel too small now. The habits that once numbed you, you don't crave them like you used to. Why? Because you're no longer driven by survival. You're led by alignment. Carl Jung believed that when the unconscious becomes conscious, it no longer controls you, you begin to choose. And that's the real power, choice, the ability to live from truth, not trauma. To act from clarity, not fear. You start saying no. Without guilt, you start saying yes. To things that nourish you, not deplete you. You no longer need to explain yourself. You no longer tolerate what violates your peace. But this change, as beautiful as it is, can be uncomfortable. Because when you rise, not everyone will rise with you. Some people will resist your growth because it challenges their comfort. Some environments will reject your new energy because they were built on your suppression. And that's okay. Because this journey is not about pleasing everyone. It's about honoring yourself. You'll lose people, roles, and routines, but you'll gain something far greater, your sovereignty. And when that happens, you begin to inspire without effort. Your presence alone becomes a permission slip for others to be real. Your courage becomes contagious. Your honesty creates space for others to breathe deeper. That is the ripple effect of healing. It doesn't just change you, it changes everything you touch. So let me ask you, what's one boundary you've recently created that protects your peace? What's one behavior you no longer accept from others or from yourself? These small decisions? They're acts of self-respect. They're signs that your inner healing is no longer a secret. It's alive in how you move, speak, and choose. And if that resonates, leave a comment with "I choose me." Because when you choose yourself from a place of awareness, everyone else in your life gets the best version of you too. There comes a moment after all the reflection, all the release, all the rebuilding, when life asks you a new question. Not, "Are you healed?" but, "Now that you are awakening, what will you do with it?" Because true healing doesn't end with feeling better. It evolves into living better. Carl Jung believed that individuation, becoming whole, is not just a personal journey. It's a collective contribution. When you stop living in pieces, you start moving with purpose. Not from ego, from essence. The wounds that once crippled you now become bridges to deeper compassion, sharper clarity, and a kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. You begin to show up differently. You speak not to impress, but to express. You listen not to fix, but to understand. You serve not to be seen, but because you've seen too much not to. Your presence becomes a light for those still lost in their darkness. Your story becomes a mirror for those still trying to recognize themselves. Your truth becomes a medicine that no book or degree could have ever taught, because it was earned, lived, and embodied. But here's the trap. Many people stop here. They feel lighter, more whole. Life flows again, and they rest. But wholeness is not a destination. It's a responsibility. Because once you see, you can't unsee. Once you've touched truth, you can't keep pretending. Once you've tasted freedom, you can't go back to living in cages, not your own, and not anyone else's. So now the question is this: how will you use what you've discovered? Not in grand gestures, but in daily integrity. Will you speak your truth when it trembles? Will you set boundaries when it's easier to stay silent? Will you share your story, even when your voice shakes, because someone out there needs to know they're not alone? This is what turns healing into purpose. Not perfection, not performance, but presence. A quiet, steady flame that reminds others it's possible. You're not broken, you're becoming, and you're not alone. So if this journey has stirred something in you, if even one moment made you feel more seen, more heard, more understood, then make it count. Drop a comment with one sentence: "I will live this." Not for likes, not for applause. For you, because you've come too far to go back to pretending. And somewhere, someone is waiting for your light to remind them of their own.